Let me tell you a story. When I was going through my own divorce, the hardest thing I had to do was tell my mother. I'm a grown woman who couldn't tell her mother that she was getting divorced. It turns out my intuition was right because she didn't speak to me for a month. Why? Because what were my parents going to tell people? They were old school. Everything was about the appearance. They invited all of their friends to my big wedding, and now they had to tell those same people that their daughter couldn't make it work, that their daughter failed. It was hard to tell my own friends too, because the married ones didn't know what to say. They wanted to be supportive, but they didn't know how to do it. They were uncomfortable, and it was easier to disappear. It was a time when I needed people the most, and yet it was probably the loneliest time in my life. But despite not being happy, I almost stayed because it was easier to live a lie than to explain to everyone why I was getting divorced. Think about that. I was willing to sacrifice my own happiness just to avoid the criticism of those around me. I felt like I had to justify my decision to other people. How crazy is that? But my story isn't much different than the clients I've helped over the years. Even the clients who didn't want the divorce usually acknowledged that their marriage was joyless and filled with fighting and conflict. Usually those women were willing to stick it out because the uncertainty of being alone or the stigma of being divorced was just too much. It makes me so sad to see people accept unhappiness because it's easier to handle than the unknown. Your life is worth so much more. Yet I almost stayed, so I can understand how you feel right now. Whether you were the one asking for the divorce or your spouse told you he or she wanted one, the result is the same. It shows up as shame, embarrassment, grief, anger, resentment. Sound familiar? Your spouse was supposed to be your partner to the very end. He was supposed to be your ally in wrangling your children. He was your ready-to-go date for parties, weddings, and the dreaded back-to-school night. He was the one who unclogged the sink or made sure you had flowers on Valentine's Day. You were supposed to get old, wrinkly, and cranky together. But the D word changed everything. Divorce is much like losing someone to death. It is the death of your marriage and all of the hopes and dreams that went into it at the very beginning. Much like any death, your divorce requires a grieving process in order to heal. If you don't allow yourself to grieve properly, you might find yourself engaged in destructive and senseless battles with your spouse. The problem with this is when you remain in this frame of mind, the devastation and trauma to your family is heightened and prolonged. Your emotional divorce is not a legal event, but a journey. With your divorce comes too much stuff, too much information, too many choices, too much noise, and all of that equals overwhelm. And that feeling of overwhelm is where you might be paralyzed. I start this course here because everything that you are experiencing right now can dictate how long your divorce goes, the level of conflict that you encounter, and what happens at the other end. Throughout the D course, I will give you many actionable items, but usually what you are emotionally experiencing is the place that puts you in the muck and prevents you from moving forward. It is so hard to talk about process and money and parenting schedules when you feel a little broken. It's hard. You will feel things and it's okay to grieve. In fact, you have to go through the stages of grief so that you can emerge ready to take on your new beginning. If you don't, you will stay stuck in the should've, could've, would've phase rather than move on to the next chapter of what can be. Listen, you'll survive, I promise you. But I don't want you just to survive. I want you to thrive. This is just a plot twist in a much bigger story. It's just a moment in your life, and it will pass. But here's the thing. If you spend all of your time looking back, you will never be able to see what is in front of you. Imagine a life of peace, happiness, and joy. It's out there, but only if you take a step towards it. Picture dropping a plate. It shatters into dozens of ceramic pieces. What do you do with it? Do you pick it up and try to glue it back together and use it again? Will that work? Your marriage is the same way. Rather than glue it back together when you know some pieces slid under the dishwasher, what if you tried making something new with the ceramic pieces? A piece of art, because from brokenness, comes growth. This is a growth mindset. From your pain comes your power. You have the power to put your life back together into a beautiful, creative, colorful, new piece of art. Here is how. The Freedom Framework is a framework of what will happen during your divorce. At some point, you will have an internal conversation with yourself. You'll recognize when that happens now because I'm pointing it out, but most people don't identify this shift. This will be the point that sets you off in one direction or the other. The conversation you have with yourself stems from the emotional energy that you are experiencing. This moment will be a decisional threshold of how you come out the other end. If you choose one way, you will go into battle with your spouse. You will feel like he is always winning. You will feel like you are giving up too much. You will blame him. It may be your lawyer that you are not getting what you deserve or what you are entitled to. You will spend thousands and thousands of dollars on legal fees to make him pay for what he has done. You will end up with an agreement or a court order after a trial that you aren't happy with. You will still feel like your spouse got off easy, but it won't end there. The conflict will continue. The blame game will show up regularly. You will have a hard time moving forward. You'll be stuck. If you choose the other way, you will compromise and reach a decision that might not be perfect, but's livable. You will accept that you grew apart, that neither of you are perfect, and that you are both entitled to be happy. Maybe you will mediate and keep your legal fees low so you have more money to spend on a new house or put into savings or your kids' college fund. You will forgive your spouse. And co-parenting after your divorce will be civil and respectful. You will both move on and meet new partners, perhaps. You will find new things that bring you joy, and you will be at peace where you are, even if it looks different than what you imagined. Let me illustrate this further. I have a client, and for purposes of this exercise, I'm going to call her Stephanie. Now, Stephanie, like most people, has a lot of anxiety about her divorce. The attitude she has adopted is, I won't recover from this. The questions she asks me sound something like this. How will I be able to pay my bills? How will I take care of the house maintenance? How will I ever trust again? You can see her questions are grounded in uncertainty. She is looking externally for answers. Let's compare this to you, because your attitude is not, I won't recover from this. Your attitude is, I will be okay. And the questions you ask are not, how will I? Your questions are, what can I do? What can I do to afford my bills? What can I do to make sure the driveway is plowed in the winter? What can I do to trust again? You are looking internally for solutions. See the difference? The Freedom Framework depends entirely on the energy you give these questions. You will have the opportunity to make this threshold decision over and over and over again throughout your divorce. The shift from looking to someone else to provide answers to looking inward to finding solutions will empower and embolden you to take control of your future. So often, Stephanie will expect me to provide her with solutions. And I can say, Stephanie, you can't afford this particular house. The solution is to find a new home, one that will be affordable and will allow you to comfortably pay your bills. But she doesn't want to hear that answer from me. She wants me to tell her that her husband will finance her desire to stay in a home that might be too big or require too much maintenance. And when I tell her that no judge will give her that much of her husband's income because he's entitled to live too, she'll get angry. She'll blame someone, maybe him, maybe me. She'll say, I won't ever recover from this. But if Stephanie looked at her budget and asked, what can I do so that I can live comfortably? She'd probably reach that same conclusion I shared with her, but she would reach it on her own. She would evaluate her budget, her expenses, what she might be able to reasonably expect from alimony based on what I've told her, and decide that the marital house is too big, too expensive, has too much maintenance. You see, she'll ask herself, what can she do to make sure she's okay? And take actions that are aligned with her solutions. So you have a decision to make. Right now, right here, I want you to say to yourself, I choose the what can I do attitude. So let's recap the takeaways from today. 1, allow yourself to feel all of the feelings. Allow yourself to grieve so that you can move forward. 2, choose a growth mindset and remember from your pain comes your power. And you can put the pieces back together into a beautiful piece of art. 3, look internally for solutions by asking, what can I do? 4, divorce isn't easy, but it doesn't need to define you. It is but a moment in a much bigger story. And remember, you can do really hard things.